This is Aaron Schober and John from Kingdom Arms Sword Fighting League, or Castle. It's a lot shorter, easier to say, here in not so sunny South Carolina. So we are taking up Richard Marsden's April challenge and doing an instructional video. We've never done one of these before. We have videotaped ourselves sparring, mostly for our own benefit and edification. So this is the first time we're really going to try to put something back into the community. Obviously, I'm the teacher here at Castle. I'm the local expert in South Carolina, because before me, there wasn't a lot of us doing this, or any of us doing this. But in the HEMA community at large, I have been content to be more of a student and learner and like sit and listen versus sharing my opinion, but taking up the challenge, maybe it's time to do so. So today we're covering the technique of Durchwechseln. As I'm looking on YouTube at a lot of awesome videos, one thing that really hasn't been covered much, hardly at all, is Durchwechseln. And so it's a great technique. Hopefully we can add some good insight to it. Hopefully you guys will like it. If not, feel free to say so. Just be nice about it, because I just took that huge self-deprecating, like, few minutes introduction on it. So, working with the Durchwechseln, initially I was working with the Ringek translation, which is awesome, but with this technique, it doesn't have a whole lot of information. Working from Topler's book, the changing through, learn from both sides, thrust with intent. Whoever binds to you, change through and find him exposed. And then Ringek says, do it like this. If he wants to bind you in the sufectant against the strike through thrust, allow your point to slide through under his sword and thrust at him on the other side. There you find him exposed. All right, no problem, that's awesome. What we used to have a problem with is that we make the motion much too large and we can never pull it off. So for instance, if I'm attacking John and I'm planning to do a Durchwechseln, if I just come in with a regular overhow and we're bound like sword to sword here, if I want to do a Durchwechseln, even if he's not threatening me, I have to pull my sword all the way back into ox, and it takes forever. But even if I try and do it fast, it's going to be really hard to pull it off. I really have to just straight up out-time him, or hope that he's a horrible fencer to get to pull off. And that is the basic point. What I mentioned in passing, I should have started with, was that this technique only works if he is not threatening me. So if John cuts down and he's threatening me with my point, I am not going to Durchwechseln here. And if I do, it'll be the last Durchwechseln I'll ever attack, because he's going to stab me in the face, as he should. So this implies that he's cutting at my sword and not toward my body, not threatening me. But even so, if I come in high like this, it's going to be too hard for me to clear his sword underneath. It's going to be too easy for him to respond. Or even if he wasn't planning on it, he'll just go into a secondary attack before I can complete the Durchwechseln way up and left ox and thrust under. So we always had some trouble with that, so we just never ended up doing it much. So, with a little more study and a lot more experience, getting around a lot more teachers, we've changed it up a little bit. One of the texts that we use a lot is the Dobringer Codex. And in there, you see it's talking about you strike an upper strike at him so that you shoot your point toward the left side in over his cross guard, so that if you hit at the small opening between the edges and the cross guard, if you hit, then you've won. So what I'm taking that to mean, as it's talking about strike at him and shoot your point forward, that it's much less of a trying to come in with like a cleaving overhow, and it's much more cutting straight at him into one or the fist. Now, if I cut at him like this, and he's defending against my point, it'd be a lot easier for me to pull my point back, and just to get to the other side of the sword. I don't need to do a huge wrenching motion to get my point clear. If he's defending against my point, there's not a whole lot of space for me to move out of the way. So if I cut right at him here, just with that little motion, I can easily clear his sword, get to the other side of it. With this also, cutting to this, it puts me in a good distance where I probably don't even need to take a second step to complete the Durchwechseln. If I come in like this, I'm already in range. If he's staying back, and I cut it, I can just take some adjustment steps right there. I'm willing to hit you, no matter how far you back up. So that's very, very simple Durchwechseln. Why don't we switch up? I'll do it for John. We'll do the Durchwechseln so you can see it from the other side as well. So you're just cut into long work. All right, a little bit faster. So obviously I'm not threatening John with my defense. If I was, if he cut at me like this, he's not going to try to pull off. He's going to stay on there. He's going to do something other than a Durchwechseln. One of the easiest things to do in the Durchwechseln, especially when you're in this position, is it's very easy to do multiple changing through. For instance, John cuts at me, I block, he does a Durchwechseln, I'm like, oh no, he's going to stab me, so I block again. And just with moving his hand, he can easily just change the point through time and time again. If I try to repeat, or if I try to retreat, let's cut at me. If I try to retreat, it's really easy for him just to keep making these small, like simple steps or adjustment steps, and just keep the pressure on. And what's happened in the couple of fights that I've done this technique is you're going to hit him eventually, or he might get tripped up and fall down because he's not used to backing up more than a step or two. It's just when you get on the defensive like that, it's so much faster for him because he's just doing a little flick of the sword. Versus you trying to move the sword across your body. So let's do it from the other way so you can see the other side. So I'll do cut to you. So it's very fast. It's once you get in that position, you're in a good spot. You can aim for any of the four openings from there. So let's see. Make sure. And that we also see that in Durchwechseln. If he defends against that and presses your point with the sword, let the point sink down on the side of your arm below the sword around to the other side. Do not make a wide movement. It's amazing how I never noticed the do not make a wide movement before, because it's all over the text. We go under his sword, and the next thing you do is rush him with a good strong thrust over his crossguard. So, yeah, this is the same thing we were just talking about. Now, let's say that I do a Durchwechseln, and John defends, but he gets his point on me. So he might have enough sensibility, he might have enough training that even if I get that initial Durchwechseln right there, I didn't do it. But even if he defends poorly on the first one, I can do a Durchwechseln. From here, it's very easy for me to just wind over and take a step and get into one of my hangings. So even whether I've done it at poor timing or whether right here is pointing at me, if you cut off to the side where you're not threatening me, when I come in here, if he starts threatening from this point, it's very easy for me to wind over and then I can take a step. I can come in with any sort of other techniques from there. You want to use a Durchwechseln at the proper time. If it fails for some reason, it's very easy to bind and wind onto a sword or switch into another technique, so that's no problem. Also, from working from the pseudo von Danzig, or if I've got the more proper term correct, the Starhemberg manuscript, it agrees a lot with the Codex Durchwechseln and Ringneck and a lot of the basics. It also sets up another version where if I am attempting to Durchwechseln, I'll actually start in long point with my left foot forward and try to get him to attempt to beat my sword out of the way so that I can do it. So this is neat because instead of me attacking and trying to get him to defend off to his, instead of me attacking and trying to get him to defend off to the side, in this case I'm actually just saying I'm long point trying to provoke him. I'm trying to get him to try to beat my sword out of the way. That is one thing you see a lot. If I'm just trying to keep my base, I might try to beat my sword that way. He might do it with the overpow, he might do it with the crimpow, whatever. But my goal here, and this is, once again, he's not threatening me at the time he's going for the sword. He's aiming for the point. He's not trying to come in with, Absetzen or something. He's not threatening me, he's just trying to beat the point away. So like in here, I do the same Durchwechseln. I think the text says specifically to start with the left foot forward because of the range that we're working in. If you want to back up a little bit, we're on camera. If I'm standing in long point, and he's beating my sword away, we're at a pretty good range here. So I think that's why it specifically says to start with the left foot forward, so that I can, as he's a sword away, I can take a step with my right foot and I end up in this good position here, where if he tries to beat that away, again, then we can, you know, we can go back into readiness again. Let's do it from the other side too. So if you want to back up a little bit. So you stand on long point. If I just try to beat your sword away, you're right there. Take a small step forward with your right foot. Now if I really try to rush at you, you probably wouldn't need to step at all. You can take a step back. Still gets you in that same position. Set up for the thrust. That's good. And from here, let's say I tried to do an afterblow. Like where I tried to, maybe I was setting up a two-part attack. I'm trying to beat his sword out of the way and then come up underneath. Or I'm trying to set up like a double overhouse or something. So from here, once he's got me, if he's done it fast enough, once he's thrusting me, it'll be very easy for him just to wind over into the defense again. So if I cut it like this, he comes in for the thrust and then he can easily wind into one of his hangers, either ox or plow, depending where my secondary attack is coming from. Another thing with this is that I found that it works really good if you don't wait for the contact. Because if John's standing in long point back, if he's standing in long point, I'm like, okay, he's on the defensive, so that means that I need to be the aggressor, right? So if I'm expecting to try to beat his sword out of the way, I'm anticipating that contact. I'm probably going to wait for that contact before I finish the move that I was going for. So if he moves and does a Durchwechseln before contact, that might give him a little extra time because we never actually touch. I'm coming in and he's right there already. Or if I'm trying to go just for the point, he can do the same thing with the step. The step for the outside I do it, the step for it, I'm going to just try to beat the point out of the way, and you're right there. And if I try to come up, easily wind up, step to the side, wind up to the defender's. The one thing you really want to watch out for in this situation is if he's read his manuscripts, he may try to counter your long arm with a shield head. So if I'm in long arm, all right, and I see him trying to beat my sword away, and then he ends up doing a shield howl and cutting down on my hand instead. Yeah. So that would be the one thing that I need to be careful of. If I'm expecting him to just beat the sword out of the way and I don't actually clear his blade. Because if I end up here and he closes distance and he cuts over with the shield howl, to either cut on my hand, you know, or thrust at my face, that would be a problem. But if I clear the sword, and one thing that I think helps with this is not waiting for the contact. You know, if he's going for the shield howl, if he's waiting for that initial contact, you know, I may get him at that point. This would be a little tricky if he's may end up getting killed. So you always have to wait until the proper timing. What I did just there was probably a poor technique because his point was threatening me. It wasn't completely off to the side. If he's coming up here, I'm going to need to cover my own protection before I go looking for him. Thank you, John. That's all I have on that technique. I'd love to hear some of the other guys' interpretations, or if there's other manuscripts. I've worked through these somewhat. I'm fairly comfortable with these and the parts that I've studied. There's a lot of other manuscripts that I've obviously read, but I have not taken the time to study, such as mine. So if any of you can add some more interpretation of this, we really appreciate it. But anyway, thanks from Castle, Aaron Schober, Mr. Weinberg. Thank you very much.